Chapter 119. Enough. Heejia interrupted Officer Li's speech. Officer Li, why do you have to save everyone? For those strangers you've just met, are you willing to let yourself die again and again? Officer Li smiled slightly, took out a cigarette and lit it. That's not right. He shook his head and said, I'm a criminal police officer. How can I only help the people I know? The victims in this world are all strangers to me, but I will definitely risk my life to protect them. That's the truth. Anyway, I don't agree, Heejia said. Your echo ability is just my guess. It's not known whether you can conjure items as you like. What if you can only conjure a lighter and cigarettes? Then we don't lose anything. Officer Li replied. It's worth a try. Maybe your guess is correct and I can really take everyone out without effort. But if you exchange your life for 600 Tao. What about you? Kaizhong said with a frown. According to this logic, you will die the moment you collect 600 Tao and won't have the right to get out at all. Isn't that just right? Officer Li laughed heartily. Kaizhong, my best ending is to die here to save everyone. Don't say such unlucky word, Tish replied with some worry. Before we figure out the situation, you can't determine your own ending. He knew that Officer Li would do what he said, and dying here was the best destination for him. Tianhuan An. Officer Li muttered softly. With him around, I can't go back. Officer Li, you're from 2010, right? Heejia asked. Yes, I'll give you a contact method. After you return to the real world, contact me at that time. Heejia said. I'll help you deal with Xianghuan and contact you at that time. Officer Li blinked slightly. Heejia, which year are you from? How old are you this year? I'm from 2020 Tundan, 26 years old this year. Officer Li lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then looked up and said, You were only 14 years old in 2010. Do you know what kind of person Zhang Huanan is? It doesn't matter. Heejia shook his head. He can't defeat me at 14. Officer Li found that he couldn't see through the man in front of him at all. Could a 14-year-old teenager really defeat a heinous swindler? Then Officer Li suddenly thought that Kaizhong was also a swindler. But his eyes were different from all the criminals Officer Li had seen. There was no evil in his eyes, only despair. Heejia, are you really a swindler? Officer Li asked calmly. How many times have you cheated? Who did you cheat? This has nothing to do with us escaping from here. Heejia turned his head and said, Anyway, I won't harm innocent people. Does that mean you also lied in the first story? Officer Li asked. That's not important. Just remember that I'll help you. And in exchange, promise me not to easily sacrifice your life for others. Officer Li thought carefully about what Heejia said and couldn't find a reason to refute. I promise you. Officer Li nodded. But if I, by accident, in a certain game, then I will try this ability no matter what. All right. Although Officer Li still didn't give up, the plan he proposed this time was better than before. Heejia, what's your echo? Officer Li suddenly asked. Heejia scratched his head after hearing this and said, I don't know. You don't know? Officer Li was stunned. This situation is difficult. Does that mean you may not keep your memory next time? Yes. Heejia nodded. But it's different for you. Officer Li, unless your head is blown off by a bullet, you will definitely keep your memory. It can be said that all our hopes of escaping depend on you. But what can I do alone? Officer Li said helplessly. If you all forget about this, how can I succeed? Heejia knew this was really tricky. If they really wanted to escape from this strange place, theoretically, the more people who kept their memories, the better. As the game progresses, the cycle will start again and again, so the number of echoers should also increase. That is to say, the matter of keeping memories can't be hidden. In that case, is there anything strange about the warning from the human sheep? Who should be careful of? Is it the Zodiac? Is it the gangsters? Or other participants? Heejia thought seriously for a while and then said to Officer Li, Officer Li, if I forget all this next time, You just need to tell me one sentence. One sentence? Yeah, Kaijo nodded. You just need to tell me you Neonan said dong dong dong, and I'll understand everything. This is a secret only she and I know. When staying with you Neonan, Kaijo would always fall into a contemplative state, and at this time, Yu Nianan would say dong 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 upon hearing these three words, come back to his senses and ask with a smile, who's outside the door. So Kaijo is at home. Yu Nianan would always reply playfully, I thought Kaijo wasn't home because you ignored me for so long. The two of them played this silly game dozens of times, which became a unique symbol of Yu Nian and Ki. Impression, is that all right? Officer Lin nodded. Will you believe me? Since we're in this damned place, what else can't be believed? Kaijo said with a melancholy expression. I must go back from here, but before that, I want to ask the Endland to return what belongs to me, something that belongs to you. Officer Lee blinked, obviously not understanding. Kaijo didn't dwell on this question. Instead, he thought of another thing. He took out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. This was the Zodiac Ascension gambling contract, found on the human sheep. There had always been outsiders before, and Kaijo hadn't had the chance to read this strange contract. If there are any unknown secrets in this place, they can definitely be glimpsed from this contract. Seeing this, also came over. The two held one side each and read the contract in its entirety with the dim light of the surrounding teaching building. After reading, Officer Lee had a complex expression on his face. He felt like he was going crazy. Could a normal person write such a thing?